So we'll get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining me for today's session. I'm so glad you are here and attending the Red Hat Summit. So we'll quickly get started. We plan to do 9 live demos. I hope they work, so I hope you enjoy this session. If they don't work, we have recorded videos. I hope we don't have to use them. So let's get started. So the essence of this talk is really how businesses can automate. And when they start automating, automation for the sense where they enable the customers to take action. So if the customer can self-serve themselves, they are more happier, your satisfaction rates go high, and your operations cost go down. So when you're doing that, we don't want you to go and rewrite everything. We want you to use your legacy systems, and that's what, in this demo, I have a make-believe bank, which is called Keyforth Bank, which we'll use that as a make-believe bank to see how they did it and how you could do it. So let's get started.
All right, can folks at the back hear me all right? I have a tendency to speak soft and fast, so okay. So quickly, a quick revision, a walkthrough of what we want to present from an agenda perspective. Why this session, right? I mean, why care about chatbots, about newer channels of today? Why, give you a rundown of what we think is happening in the industry. Quickly talk about architectures for Slack, text messages, and Facebook messengers, particularly in the context of our demo, correspondingly for Alexa, and then hit you with all those 9 demos that Anurag was talking about. All right.
Okay, so we generally have questions like what the weather is like, right? So you could ask, now you have Alexa, but generally what we do is go to a website, put in a zip code, and look at and read it, like too many steps. So can we cut that down and optimize? I think that's the really essence of this talk.
So I'm a mom of 2 kids. I'm also potentially an operations manager. I'm always trying to get ahead of the tasks that I have to do routinely. Is there a way my Alexa, my personal home assistant, can actually help me get in front of these tasks? Right? That's something that we're going to show to you. Not only does that help me optimize, how fast I do this, it in turn translates to efficiency for a corporation, as is obvious.
So putting it context with FSI industry, like I want to check what is the current mortgage home loan rates is, what is the savings rate is. It's so difficult to even find that. What is the baggage policy for a particular airline for my status? Like, it's so difficult to even understand. So how can we optimize and enable the customers to find that information easily?
All right. So let's get to the why, right? It's far too obvious. It's far too obvious that newer channels means newer revenue opportunities. Now, Anurag is going to give us a lot of data and analytics on, consumption by Facebook, how many Facebook users there are, how many Slack users there are today, et cetera. But social commerce is here and now. For example, today a Facebook plus Groupon style app is embedded in WeChat, and therefore that crate of mangoes, Dean, that you wanted to buy fresh from the farm is actually much less expensive if you decided to share it with all your friends on WeChat. So those are the kind of experiences that are already happening today. And therefore it becomes almost too obvious to say that these newer channels start to represent broader markets, more interesting markets where you potentially have a faster turnaround time, but then these broader markets are a result of FOFs, what is referred to as friends of friends, etc. Now, not to mention, other than additional new markets and audiences, you potentially have a way to sell and upsell and cross-sell. And we actually will see this in action today. For instance, when you're ordering checks, there's a smart way to kind of embed a recommendation engine that says, okay, you're ordering checks, but how about this as well? And then the concept is not new, however, the delivery and the channels are new. Okay. The additional challenges, sorry, I'm not done with the previous slide. Okay. So you potentially do have existing investments in BPM and BRMS. How would you leverage them? And obviously, you have to adapt to the demands of newer channels. This is an instant gratification culture, particularly with the newer channels. Therefore, what that translates for you on the IT side is much lower latency, being available much higher than you expected it to be. What if something goes viral? All those, adaptability to those demands of newer channels is certainly something to reckon with. Okay. So I see a lot of familiar faces. So do we really need to kind of go into a quick portfolio view of what is an automation portfolio, the components? Any show of hands on anybody that does not know what is in our portfolio? Not you, Prakash. Okay, well, so for the sake of completeness, our automation portfolio consists of 4 main components, and we'll kind of go from the right to left. Is it right to left? Okay. So complex event processing, again, is indeed what the industry term for it means. Basically, there are event streams coming in from multiple sources. Complex event processing engine helps you correlate all these streams and make sense of it. Make sense of it by mining for patterns of interest. So not all this data is of interest to you. Once you mine for patterns, that starts to become a cause to action, a call to action, whether a particular event occurs or in fact does not occur. Okay, so that's all facilitated with the complex event processing engine. Now, business resource planning is yet another very interesting feature. So this is essentially a planning and optimization engine. The best way I like to tell the business resource planning product is in the context of the task management use case. So you've got n people that will have to work on some tasks. Each of them have separate skill sets. Each of them have affinities to a particular customer, say. And you've got all these tasks that need to be assigned to all these human beings. How would you best assign these tasks given A is on vacation Monday through Friday of next week, given B wants to work only 5 hours? So what you would do is to express to the engine what your hard, non-negotiable constraints are, and also express to the engine what your soft, somewhat negotiable constraints are. What the product does is to use best fit algorithms, and in fact you have a lot of leverage in the kinds of algorithms you'll use, to generate an optimal assignment for you. Now, I'm happy to talk to these audiences a lot more about any of these components offline, but the focus of what we want to show today is by far our most ubiquitous products, the business rules management and the business process management. So again, quick spiel on what business process management is. I almost feel old repeating this. I've been doing this for a bit now. So business process management is really taking potentially a manual workflow and translating it into an executable model. Now, the advantage of all the of representing it in a BPMN 2.0 model is that it's easy for business analysts or anybody else to understand what this is, and in fact represents a runtime a runtime usable model. So essentially, a workflow potentially can consist of system interactions, human interactions, etc. Hopefully that covers it for business process management. So what you're looking at and what Anurag will potentially will talk a lot about is one way to model a business rule. So we've moved on to business rules now. So business rules is again more popularly identified as the rules open source engine. It's a rule engine. Essentially, give it a bunch of input and very overly simplistically speaking, give it a bunch of input and generates a particular output, respecting the rules that you've modeled here, for instance. Again, easy way for business analysts to come here and model this versus the other forms of modeling of business rules being extremely IT-centric. Choose anything that you want on the spectrum. For instance, you're looking at a business rule here that says, given a particular range of months and given a particular range of amounts, what is the savings rate that Anurag was talking about? So, go ahead.
Perfect. Thanks, Kavitha, for that introduction. So what has really changed in the industry after the App Store? So App Stores did a big, Apple came out with it. And what has really changed? And that's what we are going to look at today. So what has really changed is if you look at the top 4 messaging apps have overtaken the usage in 2015 itself. So this is really old news. So this is something not I'm telling you now. And this is going to get more stronger as we go forward. What we are also seeing, so Activate is a research company which basically says by 2018 there'll be 3.6 billion users on messaging apps when compared to social media apps. So you'll be spending more time chatting, texting rather than on Facebook, and that's where the trend is. And that's why I think Facebook even bought WhatsApp. So back home for me, because I'm from India, everybody in India, I connect to using WhatsApp. So it's a huge channel, and that's what we need to be looking at. And that's the focus of today's talk is. So what we are also saying, people download apps, they don't use it. How many apps do you regularly use? So the interesting part about the messaging apps is if you are not using, your friends are using it and they will text you. And just because of that, your engagement is much higher on those apps. So on an average, a user spends 200 minutes per week on just WhatsApp. I think those numbers are really big, I think. So just think about how much time you spend on other apps that you have on your phone. So Facebook is about to hit 2 billion users already. So just think, so the population of the world is around 7.5 billion users. So on just one messaging platform, you have 7 billion users already. So industry has to start adopting these newer methods of communication. And they have 34,000 bots already. So this talk is not new. This is a pretty old talk, I think, in the sense. So we need to really catch up. And these 34 bots, most of them are payment enabled. So you can purchase things using bots. So companies are already selling stuff on these bots. Slack. So again, Slack is widespread in the organization. At Red Hat, we use Slack. Any industry you go to, the IT industry especially, people are using Slack. So can we use Slack, which is an office communicator now, to enable employees and improve their satisfaction also? That's also we'll look at. Messaging. So we were talking about big numbers both on Slack and Facebook, but if we cannot forget about the old simple messaging, because on simple messaging, there are 4.7 billion users already on simple messaging. And developing countries, and like case in point, India, still more feature phones sell than smartphone. So there's a huge amount of potential there. So when we are developing these newer modern communication channels, we cannot forget messaging, and we'll use that in today's talk too. So what is the answer? Bots. And that's what we are going to talk about. So what will make a bot really great? I think natural language processing is really important, because I might ask a question differently and you might ask the same question differently. The system really has to understand, and it cannot be frustrating for, like, the bot just cannot say, I didn't understand that, say that again, right? So we really need to use natural language processing, and we are in the phase of technology. I think this problem has been solved now very well for a good customer experience. You need to be able to integrate existing systems, auto-scale, failover. I think you get the point where I'm going. So your orchestration engine should be able to do that. Logging, tracing, very important in distributed systems. Security and monitoring. So you need to pick an orchestration engine which is able to do that, right? You don't want to be hard coding. So you don't want to be sitting and writing every bit of code and working through it. So these orchestration engines, so I really like Kubernetes, OpenShift. So you need to pick up such kind of an orchestration engine which addresses all these constraints or requirements that we have. So let's get started. So today I've made a make-believe bank, and I'm calling it Keyforth Bank, and let's see how it works. So this is the orchestration engine, the architecture that I've put in place. So if you look at on the front side, we have 4 channels that we will use, and we'll demo each one of them today. So each of these channels you can connect using 3Scale. So 3Scale is our API gateway. Basically, what it helps you do is it can ensure that it can authenticate the customer who's using. You can generate API keys. You can use OAuth authentication through 3Scale. So I've generated API keys, and which these end systems basically use to call. And I can basically control, like I can set rate limits on it, like how many calls per second they can call. So I can limit it so that they do not overwhelm my systems that I have in place. And what I have done is the website of the Keyforth Bank is currently hosted on Amazon S3, so I wanted to make it distributed, use multiple cloud platforms. And the heart of the system is all written in Node.js. So the main is the orchestration engine, which will orchestrate across the backend and the external systems that we have. Then, because what would happen is, once you open the floodgates to these channels, the number of users that would come into your system and start interacting would be many-folds than what you have currently. So what I did was, introduced InfiniSpan, which is our caching layer. So like all the quick lookup information, like customer profile data or customer data, your employee data, what I do is I cache all of that here, essentially. And I've put 3Scale again here so that the orchestration engine doesn't overwhelm the system. For natural language processing, I'm using two systems. One is called API.ai. Go look it out. It's pretty cool. So that's what I'm using for natural language processing. But what I didn't like about this is that my data or my calls has to go out of my data center. So there is something called rasa.ai. So you should look at that. They provide a Docker image, and which I can easily run inside OpenShift, and that's what I'm doing. So for private data, you could call, for natural language processing, you could use rasa.ai. Again, going on the outside world, I'm connecting to Twilio. I'm also using SendGrid service to send emails out to the customer. So when a customer actually uses one of these channels, I decide, so if the customer is using text messaging, I send for him to validate using an email. if a customer is using Facebook chat, then I authenticate using a text messaging. So I'd use 2 devices to authenticate, and we'll see that in the demo. And then there are some things which are not shown here. I have a couple of databases which are actually running on Heroku. So I'm using Postgres database to store my customer data and my employee data. And the idea is essentially, what I wanted to really showcase is that you will have legacy databases which you will not be able to onboard into an OpenShift kind of an environment. So they should still be running outside, and how will you solve that problem? So that's the architecture for now, and I'll move forward. So this is the Comradely. So this is the first bot which we'll talk about. And Comradely is an employee helper bot. So an employee can ask simple questions and have him do simple tasks for them. So what this does is you will use Slack to connect. And this is the most simplest architecture. It uses very simple components, like few components here. It uses rasa.ai for natural language processing. All the customer data I have stored in InfiniSpan, and it looks up the data and gives back the result. So the most simplest use case. And let's see. So the first demo is this. So this is my Comradely bot, and we'll start interacting with that now. So I'm logged in. So I'm a Keyforth. So this is my homepage of Slack, and I'm an employee of Keyforth Bank. And I go and log in, and I basically say help. And this is, it gives me some options which I can do. So these are the most highly used options that I can try, but there are many more things I can do. So what I'm going to do is, let's see. So most of the time we have questions like, what is my employee number? Even at Red Hat, if I want to find an employee number, there is a system I have to log in, go to a specific place, and then find my employee number. And I just say, what really happened is it made a call, went through 3-scale orchestration engine, made a call to the InfiniSpan, brought the data back. And that's what had happened. Very important for my managers. I always submit time reports late. Now I know my bot will tell, good job. My manager is not here to see that, unfortunately. The old one is. Okay, so I see some people always keep checking during office hours their salary account, which I hate when people do that. So I don't want my employees to be wasting time doing that. So it's still being processed again, not so good, right? So if I want to do some little bit more complex tasks, let's say I want to change my bank account, I can give longer commands like that, and basically it says it got it. So if you look at what is really happening is it understanding that text, and at the same time it is also understanding the key values. So if you look at it, picked up the routing number and the account number. So it parses that text and it knows where those items are, and it will extract it out. And that's all happening through the natural language processing engine. So that's the first demo. So let's go back to the. So the demo 2, I would like to introduce Kia. That's the customer service agent bot, and where customers can interact with Kia. So you can interact with Kia using your Facebook Messenger, or you could interact with Kia using text messages. And those are the 2 demos we'll see today. So let's go. So there are 3 use cases, which I will say I want to order a checkbook. I want to find the savings rate account, and I also want to get a policy code. And let's see how that interaction on a Facebook Messenger would look like. So the first thing is I have to go to the bank account and open an account. So let's go and open an account now. So okay, I want to open a new account. Here I go. So if you see, I'm actually capturing my Facebook user ID because the bank needs to validate who the user is who's talking through the Facebook Messenger, and that's where this gets used. I'm also capturing the email address. The bank will send email addresses here, and then it also needs my phone number. Okay, so I got all that information, and I will go and open an account. So what really happened now, I opened an account, this key information was saved. So the call went down to Heroku, it stored it in the Postgres database, and it also cached it in JBoss data grid that we have. So now this lookup information is available in cache. So every time a customer chats and looks, so I go and look up from the cache. I don't have to make a heavy, a CPU intensive database query to find that information out. So this is my Facebook. So you have to go to your Facebook now. And what you have to do is go and find that page of the bank. So let's go to the bank. So this is the Facebook page. You need to like it. So once you like the page, now you can interact with that bot. And this is the bot. So now I have access to talk to him. So let me find him. So here he is. So here Kia is, and I can talk to her. So let's get started. Sure. Does that help? Okay, so I just said hello. Okay, so here the response came back. And if you look at it, it says, welcome to Key4 Bank, how can I help you? And you can have this, the bot provides lot more services, but here I'm showing you the top 4 services that are used by my users. So I want to order a checkbook. How many checkbooks you want to order? 2. So now it says, where do I send them? So now as part of my account opening process, the bank has already captured the home and office address, so no private information is getting communicated, right? I just say, okay, send it to my home. Now it could be my 5-year-old son who's doing it, right? He can be ordering like hundreds of checks and I need to be paying, so that cannot happen, right? So now what it has done is it has used another medium to send me a text message. So I just got that text message. So yeah, so if you look at Key4 Bank send me a text message. So let me open it. So here you go. So the code is 9675. So I fat fingered it. It doesn't like it. I can fat finger it again. It doesn't like it. 9675. So my order is confirmed. I'll get an email and we'll go through that email later. So let's look at the other use case. So I want to check savings rate. How much money? Red Hat just gave me a big bonus. Derek, I hope you're listening. So what is the duration? So generally we see, like if you do a deposit for a longer duration, you get a better rate. So I say I want to deposit it for 24 months. So this is it. So it came back. So it basically went through the orchestration engine, invoked the decision table in the BRMS, got the rate, and gave me the answer. Right? So cool. So let's look at the last scenario in this demo. So I want to get an auto policy. Okay, it asks, okay, which year did you buy? How much did you buy it for? So you can ask as number of questions you want, but I'm just going to ask this. So it says $300 is my auto policy. And now what it did after that, it's trying to convert me into a customer, if you see that what happened. And it says, do you want me to go ahead and set this up? So all this information, that $300 amount, came through the execution of the rules engine. So I have a decision table which executes, looks at my profile data and calculates. So it has actually picked up, so I have a table again which stores, which it makes an external service call and find how many accidents I have, how many tickets I have got. And we'll see that as part of the demo. And it calculates the amount of my insurance and sends me that. Now do I want to get, okay, 300 seems reasonable. I say yes. Now what it is doing is it is going to start a BPM process for somebody to work at. So if you look at what really happened is, you are all set, a BPM process has been started, and the task will get assigned to a customer agent from the Key4 Bank, and he will call the customer and explain this is your policy, thank you for signing up, and close that. And what has happened is, this is just for the demo purpose, the process ID 16 has also been started. And if I go back to my Key4 Bank and I have an operations tab here, I go back to the operations tab and I say get policy tasks. Okay. It should come back. So we'll let it wait, but it will come back. Okay, so here it is. So policy number 16, that process data I'm showing you here, it got created. It's at the set price. Somebody has to approve it because the system generated $300. Now the customer might call up and say, I don't like that price. Can you reduce it? Is there a coupon I can use? So we can negotiate that. So it's stuck. That process is stuck here. And just now there's no task owner has been assigned also, and that will get assigned later. So a process has been created. Okay. So let's also do. So if I'm an irritating, I don't like chatbots, so I could say agent. So the bot says our intention is to serve you top-notch service. I could basically gives me an option. So what you are also seeing is the little amount of typing I'm doing. So if you see, I always get an option and I select that, yes, please, no. And those are called quick replies. So you're basically guiding the user to take the right action and where he's not typing, so he's not getting frustrated even. So I can do that. So I say, no, I like chatting again. Perfect. And let's go and check the weather. That has to be the first use case. Perfect. So it's a little misty today, and that's the weather. And thank you for being here. So let's go back to the third demo.
You just want to drive it and I can talk.
I have one more.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
So introducing Kia, but again on a text message. And I just want to quickly show you how the interaction would look like. It's a little different here. So here. So let's look at how the interaction looks like on a chat messaging. So same interactions, but a little different because you can't do quick reply. So I get my options here, and I say, okay, same thing, but I don't get quick replies now. So the order got confirmed, same thing that we just saw. Again, let's see savings rate. So 24. So if you look at what I'm trying to show you, no matter which channel you use, you get a same feel and look, right? And I think that for a multi-channel environment, that is very critical. And that's what I think the essence here is, that we are able to replicate, because using our technology, you basically orchestrate through the same APIs behind the scene. So again, it asks me now, like here I cannot get quick replies, and I can say yes, go ahead and set it up. And now it's calling the BPM process, and I'll get my answer back. So yourself now, last time it was 16, now it is 17, the process ID 17 got created. And
typo.
Perfect. So just to quickly show, I wanted to also show you a couple of more things. Let's go and check my emails. So if you look at, all my emails have come through. So it also sends an email. And if you look at the policy code email, it says that it was $300. I had 1 accident and I got 2 tickets. And that's why my rate is that. So that information gets pulled in again from another system. And for interest rate, I get that information also. Simple emails I'm sending out, and that's how it works. For natural language processing, I'll just take a quick, so what I'm using API.ai, and in the, so what you can do is, so you basically define synonyms. So a checkbook, what are the different ways a user can say checkbook? And that's what you define here in entities, and that's what I've done. Intents is the interaction model that you build. So if I want to, let's say, interest rates, so what a customer could say, you basically define that, and what the information you want to capture. So here I'm trying to capture amount and duration. You define that, and then you define your quick responses. But what I do is I have a middle tier which actually looks at that and adds more data to these quick responses. So if you look at on my, so I'm running my website on using OpenShift here. These are the pods that are running in. I'm also using AMQ, which I'll just go back to the architecture. My 3-scale gateway is running on OpenShift. So 3-scale, we offer multiple choices, on-premise, hybrid, or on OpenShift, and I'm running a hybrid version of 3-scale for monitoring my APIs. And my chatbot is actually, if you look at, is also running here. And my InfiniSpan or JDGJ data grid caching is also running on side OpenShift. So here, if you look at very simple, you can go like Keyforce Bank, I could go and very easily define my, so this is my private URL, and it basically exposes the public URL. And what 3Scale really does is gives you a key through which you call, and then you can define your limiting factors using 3Scale. So completely UI driven, you're not writing code at all. I think that's what I really liked about it. So after that quick demo, I'm going to hand it over to Kavitha to take this forward.
Thanks. Do you just want to drive? I can just talk.
Sure.
Okay. All right. All right, so everybody that knows Anurag knows that he's quite the demo master, so that's a tough act to follow. I'm going to try humbly. So, yeah. All right. So the Alexa demo scenarios follow pretty much the pattern that Anurag showed us on the rest of the scenarios, rest of the channels. So persona 1 is that of the customer of the bank. So again, I've set myself a bank with an account with Keyforce Bank. I have this personal automation, personal digital assistant, personal assistant device that I brought home. I obviously want to leverage that for the rest of the interactions as well. Now, so the first use case is that of order checks. Trust me, the arcane nature of ordering checks over what is an innovative new channel is really not lost on us, but just bear with us. I mean, okay, that's a joke, but anyway. So we'll also look at how we are leveraging that to kind of potentially make cross-sell and upsell offers, and how you can respond to it right over Alexa. My next persona is, again, like I mentioned, that of an operations person, operations manager at the bank. I'm driving to work. I have these mundane list of tasks and approvals that I have to take care of. I'd much rather my personal assistant read me these and listen to me for responses, right? So get tasks and respond to tasks. So yeah, I'm ready for the next slide, please. All right, so again, the interaction pattern is fairly straightforward. I've written a bunch of Amazon AWS Lambda functions in Java that does something. We'll get to the channel-specific orchestration in a minute. But then they're all backed by functional microservices, one of which, like we talked about, is a rule service for savings rate. Yet another is interestingly a recommendation service, which again is a BRMS implementation. Now, I want to take a quick minute about this, and explain the channel-specific orchestration and our take on that, right? Now, as much as you can get a lot of isolated channel-specific analytics today, right? I mean, like Anurag talked about users of Slack, how many of them used my Slack bot for what operations and so on and so forth. But what you cannot get is potentially, when you have functionally compartmentalized microservices like this, a holistic view of what is potentially a logical business process. So a quick dirty implementation could have been for order checks, just directly call order checks. But we are losing out on a huge potential to make these cross-sell offers, to do a whole lot more in the span of that transaction. And hence the need for composing or orchestrating a bunch of microservices in a tangibly useful business way. Okay? So our interpretation of, next slide, please. So our interpretation of that channel-specific composition is this BPM implementation, right? Obviously, there are there's other ways to do this. So what do I mean by composing channel-specific microservices in a workflow pattern? So, right, for instance, the first thing we do is get customer profile, right? That's a microservice unto itself. Then we invoke the relevant service, whether that's order checks or process your loans, whatever you want to do. Then we have a recommendation service that says, okay, based on your customer profile, based on some other history, et cetera, has a BRMS-backed recommendation engine that generates some recommendations, and then potentially does something else like post to an analytics service, et cetera. For those of you that think this is overkill, be aware that that there's a way to smartly design a composition of these microservices via simply rules. Our rule engine essentially can be programmed to, and in fact embedded potentially in your Node.js code to say for a given customer, for a specific event, for a specific product, and all those conditions, generate me a list of microservices that I need to be calling. Right, so that's a very dynamic, very targeted dynamic list of microservices that you will be calling from within whatever, kind of whatever context you are in this case, potentially Node.js and so on. So again, this, the microservices world woke up to the importance of orchestration thanks to Netflix Conductor. And I'm happy to kind of talk to anybody that has any opinions on that. So, this, we just wanted to at least touch on this topic for today. So that's just a quick, kind of quick deployment diagram, every of those processes that we talked about, every of those microservices deployed again on OpenShift that Anurag, kind of so well mentioned. So let's get to the demo. You're going to have to help me navigate your computer. All right, so my personal assistant got a bit shy today. After all, she still can't tell my voice from Derek's. So we decided to leave her behind and use, use the Amazon test. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, Alexa, order checks. Oh.
Refresh it.
Can you? Don't like your computer. It's probably not signed in. Okay. And in terms of the development effort, it's comparable to what Anurag mentioned in terms of defining what your utterances are, what you want to implement for every of your utterances, which Amazon refers to as intents again. Oh, what happened to the audio?
Would you like me to email you the details?
I've got to do this all over again. That's the proof of the pudding, so let's do this again.
Your checks have been ordered with process in 19. You have also been pre-approved for our auto loan. Would you like me to email you the details?
Right, so you got to trust me that I tried Alexa to say identifier ID. She wouldn't say ID. She insisted on id. So anyway, so what really happened was that the order check process got activated in the background. I'm not going to take too much time and walk you through the before after of the instances in the system. So you got to take my word on the fact that a new BPM process got spawned for our check order process. However, she also said, I've been pre-approved for your auto loan. And here is exactly what I mean by a great opportunity for cross-sell. The way she fetched our auto loan is because I've composed my recommendation service as part of this service, right? So for instance, if we rerun this a couple of times, she'll tell you that you're qualified for a home loan instead, right? So for instance, so again, let's listen to her for just one quick minute.
Your checks have been ordered with process in 19. You have also been pre-approved for our auto loan. Would you like me to email you the details?
Yes, Alexa.
Okay, auto loan process started with identifier 20.
Okay, so again, this time what happened was she knew to, and at the back end, they knew to kind of spawn an auto loan process because I accepted the offer right then. So that essentially indicates the starting off of a new process, and therefore being able to leverage your BPM investments hereof. Now I'm going to quickly change personas. We talked about 2 use cases. Now I'm no longer a customer of the bank. I am the busy mom to 2 kids who wants to again kind of get the most out of my digital assistant. I'm going to say, Alexa, get me the tasks. I typically don't sound so upbeat when I'm asking her for tasks.
But if you would like details, please say task details.
All right, I'm going to play that again. Sorry, I spoke.
You have 7 tasks. If you would like details, say task details.
Alexa, get me task details.
Task 16, approve task for the amount of 600 for employee Anurag. Would you like to approve or reject this?
Okay, he's done a great job on the demo, so let's just go ahead and approve his task. Alexa, approve task. Ah, that's a typo.
Okay, this task has been approved. Say next task details for the next task.
And so I'm just going to cycle through it and go get next, Alexa, get me next task details. I can speak faster than I can type. Alexa, get me next task details.
Task 14, approve task for the amount of 600 for employee Anurag. Would you like approve or reject this?
I suspect there's a duplicate, Anurag. Go away. So Alexa, reject.
Okay, this task has been rejected. Say next task details for the next task.
So yeah, I'm going to spare you the agony of my life of approving n tasks. So but that gives you a sense of what you're able to do with the exact same microservices at the back end, your existing investments in BPM and BRMS, and facilitate all these newer experiences with multiple channels. Tomorrow something else comes along, WeChat gets popular in the US, irrespective of whether it's an Alexa or Amazon Home, Google Echo, or a Slack or a chatbot, whatever else it is, here is a great power to be able to leverage your existing BPM, BRMS investments in the microservices world on the container platform, and that's the large message we're trying to create. Go ahead and wrap it up.
So just to wrap the talk up now, so why this is more important in this world? What we are seeing is that customers who are implementing these automation chatbots engine are seeing much higher conversion rates. So for MeTech, it's seeing 30% higher conversion rate. Rogers is seeing a mobile operator in Canada is seeing much higher satisfaction rate with the customer. So that is giving them much better competitive advantage. So I think this has already been proven by these use cases. So I think we, as an industry, we need to start taking these chatbots more seriously. And how did we build this? So this demo, how did we build it? We built it one service at a time and keeping calm and using S2I. So S2I, if you don't know S2I, please learn about OpenShift S2I. That's a great tool that we have brought to the market. And it looked simple. We took a couple of minutes to do this. And when I tried to put how much technology that I have used, this is what I came up with. So I've used 30 tools and products. So tools are like Slack, Alexa, Node.js, PostgreSDB, Spark, OpenShift. So I'm running OpenShift on OpenStack. So when I counted all of them, there were 30 plus technologies that went into making this demo. I have 15 containers that are talking to each other. Like I have a caching engine. If the call to the backend fails, I publish the message to AMQ so that when the backend system comes up, it picks up that message. So there are 15 total Docker unique containers, and each one of them can scale up and scale down and can talk to each other. So it's a highly distributed system. And if you look at, I'm running on multiple clouds. So I'm using Amazon, I'm running it on a private cloud. I'm using Heroku, so it's running. I'm using API.ai on the external side, so multiple clouds. So that's what it took us to build this demo that we have. And I think it was only possible because we had great leverage to technology like OpenShift and S2I. Thank you for today's talk, and please do rate our session. And I think I'm very happy to be talking and having Kavitha as my co-presenter.
Likewise.
Because we need to, I hope I was nice to you, and that's how we need to treat all women in the industry so that more women come into the talk. Thank you.
Thank you.